Good evening. How are you doing? This is my attempt at comedy on a live broadcast, so hopefully it'll work. I don't know. I'm naming it How I Got to South Carolina or Why Do I Live in the Butthole of America? So, if that gives you a hint where I'm going with this, I guess that'll be it. So how did I get to South Carolina? Back in what was it, November or December of 2017, the Veterans Administration said you can't afford a house in New York. How would you like to go south? Now I've been living in an apartment for a long, long time, and basically New York every winter was turning me into a pretzel, and they kept wanting me to shovel snow, and I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll be out there for 5 minutes, and then next thing you know, I'll be in an ambulance going to the hospital. So basically, I figured, yeah, leaving New York was probably a good idea. So he's like, where do you want to go in the South? And I'm like, well, I lived in two places pretty much. I was in Franklin, North Carolina, and I was at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And they said, well, pick one. I said, well, I like South Carolina better. It was warmer. And when I was in North Carolina, it snowed. So I was like, I'm trying to get away from the snow. And I figured South Carolina had a better chance of having less snow. I tried to remember if there was a lot of snow when I was in the army in Fort Jackson, and I couldn't think of a whole bunch, but there might have been. So anyway, they like, well, you don't want to go to Columbia. That's a big city, and they said, how about Winsboro? And I'm like, what's Winsboro? Uh, I guess I found out. What happened was they put me in touch with a real estate person here in, um, well, I don't know if he lived in Winsboro, but he was for the area. And basically, he's like, oh, I've got five houses that fit your financial situation. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. So basically, what he did was he said, well, let me get them together for you, and then do you want to come down and look at them, or do you just want me to pick one and you'll buy it? And I said, well, you could just pick one and I'll buy it. And he said, well, it might be better if you came down and looked to make sure it was something you really want to buy. And I was like, okay, I suppose. I figured since I was going south, I had bought a Beetle, a Volkswagen Beetle, and I was like, well, if I'm going south, I'd like to get a convertible. So I looked around and I found a convertible for basically a really low price, and uh, I borrowed the money from a friend, and I bought the convertible. And they said, well, I don't want to register in New York because I figured it's going to cost a lot of money to switch registrations from New York to South Carolina. So I temporarily registered it in New York, and I had to get it down to South Carolina quickly because they only gave me like 15-day temporary registration. So here I am. I'm trying to get the darn car down to South Carolina, and I'm waiting to hear from the real estate guy to when I could come down and look at the houses that he had picked out for me. And finally, he said, "Well, why don't you come on down? We'll figure it out when you get down here." And I said, "Okay, I'm going to drive down and I'm going to fly back to New York. I'm going to leave the one car down there because I had the other car I had to bring down." And I figured I was going to need two trips to get everything I owned to South Carolina. So there I was. I packed up all my stuff, all the stuff that I didn't need in New York for the time being, and into the one car, and I drove that down South Carolina. And he showed me this house that I'm living in now. And basically, I was like, yeah, this will be fine. He's like, do you want to look at the other houses? And I'm like, well, if you want to show them to me. And I don't know, for some reason, we couldn't get it together to look at the other houses. And I had to catch a flight back to New York. I only had I basically had scheduled the flight for the next morning, and I was like, because I didn't want to stay down here too long. I didn't want to pay for a hotel or whatever. So basically, what he did was we looked at this house, and I parked my car at my insurance agent because they wouldn't let me keep the car here. And my real estate agent was real nice. He said, "Yeah, park it out there. I'll make sure that it won't be a problem." So there I was. I basically flew back to New York and waited around because I didn't know how long it was going to take the Veterans Administration to get all my paperwork done. And it turned out they were fast. Let's put it this way: I believe I dropped the car off the middle of December, and by January 10th, they had everything together. I threw the rest of my belongings in my other car, which was a Beetle. I brought the convertible down, like I said, and that was it. I said sayonara to New York, and the day I left New York, there was 2 feet of snow on the ground, and I had to get them to plow me out just so I could leave New York. And I was like, oh brother, that was fun. So anyway, I get down here. I drove down to South Carolina, and of course, the first thing I had to do was go to the electric company before I even came to the house. I had to turn on my electric, and then I got out here. I got lost trying to find this place first time I came down. Luckily, the second time I had pretty well stuck a pin in the map. Let's put it this way. This road is long. It's hard to find. It's not marked. And it's 5406. And when you start on the road, it's like 100, low numbers. So you're driving out, thinking, well, house has got to be here soon, and you're going through 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. And I'm like, where is the freaking house? And I keep driving, and finally I get out to 5406 Reservoir Road. And I'm like, oh, it's not a big property, but it's good. I'm happy, I think. First thing I did when I looked at the backyard, I said, oh, swimming pool. Instead, I have 9 Volkswagens sitting in the yard. I'm like, oh, gosh. And like I said in the introduction, I actually sold the back bumper off my car for grocery money. So, it's been interesting living here. I'm supposed to be disabled and not really doing too much anything. And since the government thinks I can live on the little money they give me, I basically have to, do stuff to try to put grocery money together every so often. It's lots of fun. My car started out all blue. It's now got a red back bumper and fenders. I hit a deer, and that caused me to have a tan front bumper and front fenders. And then some guy came in and wanted to buy my door. So now I have a tan door. Oh, the reason why I had a red back bumper and red fenders is because a lady came in. And apparently, she backed up to her husband's truck and ripped off the whole rear end of her car. So I was going to sell her the red stuff, and she was like, how much you want for the blue stuff? I'm like, I don't want to sell the blue stuff off my car because it was all blue when it started. And, I quoted her an outrageous price, and she's like, I'll take it. And I also sold her some tires. So I did pretty good that day. Had grocery money for a while. Anyway, my next comedy videos, if you like this one, if you decide you want me to do more, are going to probably end up being about my 4 ex-wives, my 6 children, and I figured it out, and I think I have 11 grandchildren. But if I'm also making this for my children and my grandchildren. I'm hoping my children will show this to my grandchildren someday and say, "That's your idiot grandfather." Uh, that should be interesting. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I'll probably share this on Facebook. I don't see any people coming in for the live broadcast. I didn't tell anybody I was doing this, so well, I did mention on Facebook, but I didn't figure out when I was going to do it. I just decided, tonight's good night. I'm not sleeping. Um, so here I am, and there you go. And if you found this even slightly amusing, let me know. And like I said, I think you'll find the ones about my ex-wives and my children and my grandchildren are going to be even more funnier. And I have some more funny stories about Volkswagens over the years. So um, I've at being 68, I've accumulated quite a few interesting stories. I might even tell a story about my when my oldest daughter was born in Germany. That might be an interesting story. So, thank you so much for watching this. Like I said, it was live, but nobody tuned in. So, basically, this was going to just be and end up being a one of my videos on my thing, and hopefully somebody will watch it. With my luck, nobody will watch it, and I'll end up. Okay. Have a good night. Thank you. Bye.